let me just record. Okay. We are recording this. If you do need to hop off, we said it was going to be a half an hour. If anyone has met me here, you know I can't shut up. It'll probably be closer to an hour, so it will be recorded and distributed afterwards. If in case you can't stay for the entire thing. So, anyway, with that being said, welcome everybody. We're very, very excited to be here today to talk about this truly extraordinary journey that Sarah and I have put together that will follow in the footsteps of The Alchemist, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I have no fewer than 6 copies in different languages sitting here on my bookshelf. So we're gonna share a lot more about why and where the inspiration for this trip came from. Obviously, get into some of the specifics of that and all of that. But before we do any of that, I want to take a second to introduce my colleague, Sarah, who's going to be here to help kind of MC and guide my conversation and keep me in line and on track as much as possible.
That's a big feat, Michael. I'm not sure if I can do that, but we'll try. Really excited to be here. Yeah, thank you. Do you want me, Michael, to kick it off, or what would you like?
Yeah, just kick it off. I mean, maybe go through the agenda for today and
absolutely.
From there. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, as I said, we'll do our best to keep on time, and really excited this will be recorded so we can refer back, and anyone that's not able to join us live, we're excited to have you here watching this with us. So really our goal over the next 25 minutes or so is to have Michael explain a little bit more about what got him so excited and inspired by this book, what is so meaningful about his experience. And I know it's come across your life in a couple of different really important times and guided your journey. And then what inspired you to use that to create this trip in the footsteps of The Alchemist. Then we'll get into a little bit about the actual itinerary and go through a bit of a high level day by day. So first the why, and then we'll get into the how. What does the itinerary look like? What can you all expect? And then of course, whether, right in the now, if you have a question, or if we want to save that for the end as well, we'd love to hear from you, find out why you were excited. And if you have any particular questions, we'll make sure to get those answered. But let's just jump right in, if that sounds good.
Yeah, and just, Sarah, one note is, as you said, jump in with questions. We hope that this is a conversation. We don't want this to be a formal presentation. So please just hop in. If you have any questions at all, feel free to interrupt. Just shout out and we can tackle it. So
perfect. Okay, cool. Awesome. Great. So quick reminder, and this may have been some confusion, so just want to clarify. So right now we have 2 different trip times. So we have November 3rd through the 18th. And we also have a potential departure date of February 17th to March 4th. So there's 2 different times for this small group journey, going through Spain, Morocco, and Egypt. And again, we'll get into the day-by-day specifics of the trip, but wanted to clarify those 2 times. So Michael, I'm really excited. I know we've talked about this a bit, but I'm dying for you to tell everybody, why is The Alchemist such an important part of your journey? And how did this inform your decision to make it into this incredible itinerary that we hope these folks can experience?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. It sounds cliche, right? But truly, The Alchemist, the book The Alchemist, has been a life-changing experience for me. It has truly shifted and transformed, or it has inspired me to create change in my life, or transform my life is a better way to put it, right? The book hasn't done anything, but it inspired me to do that. And the first time I read The Alchemist was back in 2008. I was working on a doctorate in education. Somebody referenced it in one of my courses there. And I actually bought it as I was in the airport on the way to Beijing. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And my future ex-wife, we were dating. We were not yet engaged, not yet divorced either. But she was about to move back to Kansas from Los Angeles. She had gotten a really great job back in Kansas. And so we were about to do long distance after, dating for 2.5 or 3 years. And there was just a lot of questions going through my head at that time about, is this going to work? Is this what I want? All of those things. And ultimately, in the language of The Alchemist, like is love an inspiration or an obstacle to where I want to be and what I want to do for my personal legend? And so, of course, I wouldn't have said it in those terms at that time. But I hopped on the plane, grabbed my book, started reading, couldn't put it down, right? It's 170 pages, cranked through it in a couple hours. And in that moment, what struck me was the section of the book, if for those of you that have read it, where Santiago is in the oasis in Fayum, and he meets Fatima, and they have their conversation, they fall in love and all of that. And it was the idea that love can and should be an inspiration for all that I want to do, not an obstacle to that. And it allowed me to kind of double down in my relationship. And again, we ultimately got married. We were together for 13 years. We got divorced, but we're still really good friends, and that's fine. And so, but it was an important and pivotal part of my process of learning and growth then. And since then, I've found myself going back to that book, to The Alchemist, every time I'm dealing with some kind of challenge, opportunity, or question in my life. And I probably read it now, 12 to 15 times. And part of the beauty of The Alchemist for me is that I always get something different from it. The question that I might go into reading it with emerges, and there's an insight in there that I didn't have from the last time or the last 12 times that I read it. So it is very much a tool for me, a touchstone of learning and growth for me. And so it's just been a really, really important part of my path, my journey, my personal legend. And the last part of that, Sarah, is that I was in that doctorate in education, and ultimately my dissertation was on how travel can be a catalyst for learning, growth, and change and transformation, right? And then I'm reading this book about Santiago traveling through, southern Spain, Morocco, and Algeria, and Libya, and ultimately to Egypt, in search of his personal legend. And eventually I was like, well, it's exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's exactly what I believe in, right? This journey that he went on, this outer journey, was really not about the outer journey, right? It was really about the inner journey that he went through. And so I've been thinking about the idea of using The Alchemist as the inspiration for a trip for quite a few years. And it's only been the last 2 or 3. And of course, started thinking about this back in 2019, 2020, but a couple things have happened since then. And so it's put it on the back burner, but we're feeling good now. And so now seems like the right time to launch this adventure.
Well, that sounds awesome. And I know that you'll probably mention this. If not, I'll hold you to it as you go through the itinerary. But I'm really excited to hear how the book is informing the day-by-day itinerary, and sort of how are we going to use the powerful transformation of that story that everyone can experience while they're on the journey. So if there's anything else you want to say about that, otherwise we can get right into the day-by-day.
Well, I guess, I just add that, like, based on what you just said, right? Like, there
Tell me more. Tell me. Yeah.
Well, certainly from an outer journey, what we consider the outer journey, the logistics perspective. We follow not identically and exactly, but very close to the journey that Santiago went on. Right, we start in southern Spain. There are experiences there and we'll get into some of this more, but with a shepherd, with a local village community there, and all of those things. So you get a sense of what life would have been like. It may have been like for Santiago at that time. We actually take the ferry across to Morocco, right, which he did. We spend a night in Tarifa in southern Spain before we go, and we're one of the key moments of the book where he met the priest, right, and where that happens. And so, like, we are following along, and in many ways, the path that he takes in the book. Now, we don't, unfortunately, grab camels and trek across the Sahara. There's a thing called an airplane that we're going to take from Morocco to Egypt, which abbreviates it just a little bit. But we do try to follow that closely, and I will. So there's that part of it, right? The other part of the deeper part of it, right, is that we will, as a group, gather not only before and certainly during, of course, but even after the trip, right? This is meant to be very much a journey that extends well beyond the 15 nights or 16 days that we're on this trip. So my hope is that we'll connect in the weeks before the trip to really start the conversations and the journey that we're going to be going on together, individually and together, right? And then while we're on the trip, daily discussions, daily conversations, all of that stuff about, and my job, part of what I've been super excited to do, is to bring questions that are relevant from the book to the conversation, to the experience that we'll be having, as a group and as a community in these conversations. And then ultimately afterwards, touching base and seeing how everyone's doing and what support they need, what progress they're making, and whatever the path forward is for them.
I don't know if anyone's in a talking, sharing mood, so no problem if not. I'll be quiet for a few seconds after I ask this question. But if anyone feels compelled, I'd love to just open it up and take a pause from our side. Michael, you shared what was so inspiring for you and impactful for you with the book, and then how excited you were to translate that into this trip. I'm just curious, anyone else's, affinity with the book, or what got you inspired to be interested in the trip? Was it just the places alone? Was it really your relationship to the book, a combination? If anyone wants to just quickly share or ask any questions you might have, feel free. Okay, I gave you your chance. Can't say I didn't.
It was good,
okay,
by the way,
perfect.
Sarah. Most people get uncomfortable when they ask questions, but they say that it's like 7 to 10 seconds before someone's actually processed.
Oh, 7 to 10. Oh, I know. I didn't wait enough. I didn't
No,
wait enough. Okay.
I counted. You got to 7. You got to exactly to 7 before you said something.
Okay.
Well done, you.
Well, yeah. Well, I know we had a conversation yesterday with a gal that's really excited about this trip, and she shared, her story, and I thought, wow, it's really exciting that people. It looks like we have someone that wrote in the book and the fact that I would love to see these places, book and locations and adventure. There we go. I should have said, put your message in the chat. There we go. Okay. Yeah. You think after 2 years of COVID, I'd figured out how to run the Zoom meeting. This is perfect. Okay. Well, awesome. I think that's great. If we run, we still are in the design phase of this, right? And what I love and what I know we'll do is have these opportunities as people sign up to tailor as much as we can to your experience and what you're hoping to get out of this. Is absolutely a transformational experience. So the more we know about you and your why, we can incorporate that and highlight that. So anyway, okay.
Well, I'm going to add one thing. You referenced our conversation yesterday with our friend, colleague, former traveler, et cetera. And I thought she said something really interesting when we asked her, why are you going on this? Or why are you interested in going on this? And she said, I don't know. She's like, I'm feeling called to this. I feel like my life is really good right now. And yet there's a level of disconnect, a level of discontent, a little bit of uncertainty. There's something there between the highest expression of who I am and where I'm at now. And I want to close that gap is what we talked about yesterday. But she doesn't know necessarily what that is. And what I want to point out here for everyone listening is that you may feel called, you may feel inspired to want to travel. You may not know what that question is. You may not know what you want to get out of it. And oftentimes, actually, I'd say most times when people travel with ExploreX and they go on these adventures, then they are searching for something. They do have questions. They are facing challenges and opportunities, but it's hard to pinpoint what those might be. And they do reveal themselves during or even after the trip. So don't let the idea or the question of why are you going, if you don't have a clear answer, the answer might just be I'm feeling inspired to travel and there's something that I am wanting and needing to get out of this, and I don't know what that's going to be until I go on the trip.
Awesome. And I know we had this point earlier where we're like, do you have to read the book? Is that a trip requirement? No, it's okay. I won't identify people, but there are people in this group who have not yet read it. So it's all good. Wherever you are in your journey, if you're just feeling called or if you resonate with the book or not at a location, there's no wrong answer here. We just are really excited to hear from you. So awesome. Okay, I love it. I love all the chat. This is great. Okay, so Michael, do you want to take us through? I know we're doing 4 nights in Spain, 6 nights in Morocco, 3 nights in Egypt. I'd love to kind of have you break that down a little bit more since we're only somewhat teasing you online. So
yeah. Well, and as we mentioned on the website, that's on purpose, right? We're trying to not get too detailed. We don't want to get too much in the nitty gritty. And leave it sort of at that higher level, but also sharing enough because it's an expensive trip and it's a long commitment in terms of time and money. And so you need enough information, but we don't want to give everything away. So there are some surprises and all of that. So Sarah, as you said, we started in Spain for 4 nights. The first 3 will be at a beautiful property in the Andalusian countryside. We have exclusive use of this property. So it's just our group that's there, no one else. And while we're there, and I would say throughout there is ample time for conversation, connection, downtime, relaxing, taking a nap, wandering and exploring, whatever you need to do. We tried to intentionally not build too much into the itinerary on a day-to-day basis, so that there's not like, all right, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then we fall into our beds and collapse and, rinse and repeat the next day. We really want to make sure that we have some really exciting experiences, conversations, meetings, et cetera, planned, but also not so much that it becomes overwhelming and exhausting for everybody. But some of the things that we'll do during our time in Spain include, we'll spend a couple hours roaming through the countryside with an actual shepherd, a shepherd in Andalusia, kind of getting a better sense of what it might have been like again to be Santiago in the book. We'll visit some local villages. There's some olive oil tastings. There's even a wine tasting while we're there. He mentions wine quite a bit in the book, as a part of his culture. And so we'll do a little bit of wine tasting. We'll even have some experience in Spain with the flamenco dance and the origins of that, and even have time to meet with and connect with some folks that identify as gypsies and learn more about their musical traditions and all of that stuff, because again, that plays a part of the book as well. And then once we're in Morocco, there's a tea ceremony, right? There's times wandering through the markets and the souks in Tangier. This is not in the book at all, but we're so close to Chefchaouen that we want to make sure we go there and see this beautiful blue city. And so we'll spend a night there exploring as a fun thing to do. And then we'll spend some time in Fez, which is the cultural capital of northern Morocco, maybe of Morocco in general. I mean, people think of Marrakesh, of course, but Fez is really where so much of the craftsmanship happens. And so lots of time, again, wandering through the Medina there, but also I think the thing I'm most excited about is there's a wallet making workshop that we're going to do while we're there, which is done because when you read the book, you'll realize that Santiago lost his wallet, and that's kind of how he found himself in the pickle that he was in the first place. So we're going to have that kind of experience. And then we'll fly to Cairo. We'll spend a few nights in the Fayoum Oasis. Actually, that'll be one full day of just total downtime, because the property that we're staying at there, the Lazibin, is spectacular and beautiful, and it's got a great spa and a pool, and it's a nice place to just kind of unwind and relax after a long day of travel. And then we'll head out into the desert and we'll do some really cool things. There's some whale bones that we'll see out there in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I know, right, Tim? Crazy, but they are there. It's nuts. If you're feeling adventurous, there's an opportunity to go sandboarding as well. And then we'll spend a night out there at a desert camp with the Bedouin community, having dinner, storytelling, learning about their traditions and their history and culture. So really fun. And then ultimately back in Cairo. And I think the pinnacle potentially of the whole entire trip is the second to last morning. We'll get up and head out to the pyramids of Giza and have a private access sunrise experience at the pyramids of Giza. So which again, if you haven't read the book, is where maybe it all comes together and all makes sense in Santiago's experience at the pyramids. So we'll have that experience there. And then after that, people will have the option the following day to fly home or continue on. I mean, we've had a few people who are interested in this trip who have not been to Egypt before. We're not doing a lot of the traditional things in Cairo, Luxor, Aswan, the Nile, all of that stuff. So people that have the time have asked, and we've already started thinking about ways that we can extend the trip so that they can do some of the more traditional tourist things that are also spectacular as well while they're there.
I'm just completely overwhelmed with that, and I've been a part of it. But hearing you say it, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. It's just making my heart flutter. I love it. So one thing I wanted to mention, since many of you are engaging with the chat, feel free if you have any questions to just write them in there, and then Michael can see them and either respond in the moment as we're talking, or we can save those for the end. So if there's anything you're like, I don't want to forget, feel free to just write it in the chat. So I know, Michael, we are in transformational travel, and this is not all about just get the Instagram shot and on to the next. And you've intentionally built a good pace where we're not just go, or we have time for pause and reflection. So how are you planning on curating these intentional conversations and leaving time and space for growth?
It's a great question. And it's always a balance. We've done enough of these scheduled trips. A few people that have been here on the call have actually been on some of them, and it's always a balance between structure and the emergent nature of these trips, right? And not over structuring them and forcing conversation when it's not ready to happen, but also creating space for that conversation. So my approach to this will be a daily gathering in the morning, which can be anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes or so, where we'll have a chance to kind of check in with each other. I will have, either lead a guided meditation or invite others to lead a meditation or reflection if they want. And then we'll have a question of the day based on the book, and based on what we're going to be doing that day and where Santiago is sort of in relation to the book at that point. And that'll be we can have a conversation then about that if it happens. My guess is, and from experience, that'll be something that people that are attending that I will chew on throughout the day. And as we're going about that experience, conversations will happen, right? They will emerge during the course of the day about some of these things. And so that's been my experience leading these small group journeys in the past. I will say later, most days, not every day, because it's hard to say that with traveling and all of that, but most days in the afternoon, we'll have some downtime later in the afternoon, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, where we'll assign a space or set a space aside for people that want to gather and that want to chat, that have had some insights and they want to have a conversation about that, but certainly not a required part of it. I think ultimately, besides the daily check-ins in the morning, we're going to have, once we arrive, there will be, a pretty, 90-minute or so, not crazy, but 90-minute discussion at the beginning about why we're here, what we're looking to get out of this individually and collectively, and sort of behaviors and actions that set ourselves up for success, again, as a group and as an individual. And then at the end, which is really where most of the goodness happens, is those conversations about what do we learn, right? What are we taking away? What has inspired us? We've been talking a lot lately about spark, right? Things that were perspectives, shifting perspectives, right? Aliveness and awareness, reconnecting the self, others, nature, and the world, and knowledge and wisdom that has emerged for us. And ultimately, we hope, and our goal is that spark that you feel, whatever that is for you, will in fact inspire you to go home and create some change and to do something different, right? And take some new action in your life. And so we'll have a really great conversation at the very end of the trip, after the day of, but after we are at the pyramids at Giza, to really kind of bring everything home towards the end of the trip.
Sounds amazing. So who is this trip for? Is there an ideal person that should be joining this journey?
Everyone. I mean, really, I mean, I look back at I first read the book when I was in my mid to late 20s, and I've had folks we've talked to about this that are in their 70s. And so I would say it's really for anyone who is passionate about travel, who is open to and or really excited about the opportunities for learning and growth, and who may be going through stuff, because by the way, we're all going through stuff because we're all human beings, right? And so if you're excited about conversation, if you're excited about traveling, if you love this book, you're looking to do something a little bit more mindful and intentional, then I would say it's open to pretty much anybody who fits that bill.
Are you limiting the number of people who can sign up? What does a group size look like for this?
Yeah, we're targeting 8. Good question, Robin. We're targeting 8 people. We can run it with as few as 6, and the max size would be 10. So we have, only because some of the properties that we're at, like I said, we have exclusive use in, they only have, for example, the property in Spain, the first 3 nights, there's only 7 rooms in the entire place, right? And so that limits how many people can actually attend, just based on things like that. So, but target would be 8 plus or minus a few people.
And do you want to talk a little bit about how we'll really cultivate their experience before they've even left, and how prep them for the journey?
Yeah, I mean, so there will be, the plan is 2 pre-departure meetings, right? The first one really being about connecting with one another and creating that sense of community, sharing our whys, why we're here, what we maybe hope to get out of it, if we have an idea of what that might be, as well as talking through some of the logistics and more practical things, the outer journey things like what to pack and what to expect, and have you booked your flights and all of those kinds of things. That will happen, I think, September 20th, I think, is what we had sort of earmarked. Is that right, Sarah?
September 20th?
20th is, I think, the date we had earmarked for that. So it's flexible. We're working on that, but I think that's the date
Yeah, for the first call.
that we're targeting for now for that first community group call. And then between then and the trip, let me step back. The second and final pre-departure meeting will happen about a week before we leave. So sort of a final check-in, how's everyone feeling? How's everyone doing? All the T's crossed and I's dotted, that final check-in before the trip. And then in that 5-week interim, the invitation will be for everyone who's going on this journey to connect with me one-on-one, so we can begin to cultivate that relationship and talk in more depth about what specifically what you're hoping to get out of it, how I can support you on that journey, what I can do while we're traveling to help you make the most of it, that kind of stuff. So that's your pre-departure process. And then again, post-trip, post-journey, because some people will and may extend the trip beyond. So probably looking at about 3 weeks or so after the trip, after Thanksgiving, before the Christmas holidays, for those that celebrate Christmas, we'll have some time to kind of reconnect, touch base. How are things going? What's working? What's not? What challenges are you facing? How can we support you as a community?
Great. And so I know we can kind of get into the brass tacks of things, talking about costs. What's the investment, deposit, payment terms? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So cost for the trip. So it's 16 days, 15 nights. So the cost of the trip per person sharing, so in a shared room, is $12,500 per person. If you want your own room, there are limited single rooms available. There's an additional single supplement of $1,850 that's available. And that covers all of your transfers, all of your accommodations, most of your meals, all of your experiences, my support, guidance, and whatever else I bring to the table, as well as the rest of the team here. There will be a handful of meals, 2 or 3 that are sort of free on your own to wander and explore, but most meals are covered. The other big thing to point out, Sarah, is that the only thing that's not yet included, just because the pricing is so in flux, is the flight from Casablanca to Cairo. So we will end up booking that, but that will be an additional cost. We're just waiting to see what that will be based on how many people and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Okay. So how much do I have to pay up front? Is there a deposit? What's the, tell me how I say yes to this.
Yeah.
I want to come.
Great. Yeah, it's a $500 hold your seat, non-refundable though, right? So that $500 deposit is non-refundable. And then after that, the first sort of big payment of the remaining $12,000, so it's 25% of that, so it'll be another $3,000. That is due July 1, and then the final payment is due August 1. And that will include, by that point, we'll know what the pricing is for the flights, and we'll include that flight in that final payment there. And then again, of course, if there's any, for those that want a single room, we would include that in that final price as well. In terms of cancellations, again, that first $500 is non-refundable. We will hold it though. If you cannot go for some reason or opt out for whatever reason, we will hold that $500 as a travel credit. So it's not all lost, but you won't get that money back in cash. We'll just hold it as a travel credit for ExplorerX. Once you've made your final payment, the 50% of that is refundable up until September 30th, really October 1st. Then after that date, it's fully non-refundable. Any cancellations on or after October 1st are fully non-refundable. So.
Great. And there's a question here, and I think I know the answer, Michael, but just saying, does the cost include all of the other flights except for the one mentioned?
It doesn't, Anita. People are going to be coming from all over the world. So getting to Malaga, which is our recommended airport to fly into in southern Spain, transfers from there are included. And then transfer to the Cairo airport, but not flights back from Cairo. So.
But all of the inner trip travel, I guess, like all
the ferry, the transfers between destinations, all of that except for that flight is covered. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Cool.
Wonderful. Awesome. Okay. And so, right, all of the inner trip is perfect. Exactly. You're correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And so then if someone is interested in learning more or taking that next step, what would that look like? How do they sign up?
Yeah, so 2 ways. One is that you can certainly just shoot us an email and we can hop on a one-on-one call. That would be easy enough to do. You can send that to travel@explorer-x.com or hello@explorer-x.com. You can also go onto our website. There's a link that says join the journey on the Alchemist page, which Sarah's going to put a link into this, and we'll send it in the follow-up as well. It's also just explorer-x.com/alchemist if you want to just manually enter that. And there's a spot to join the journey. It doesn't commit you to anything other than potentially having a conversation with Sarah and I. And then we can kind of go through this. And, you know, again, I've done this enough to know that there are certain people that are a good fit and certain people that aren't a good fit, or we may not be a fit for them depending on where they're at in their journey, right? So it goes both ways. So we like to have that initial conversation to make sure that it is a fit for all involved, and that we'll be able to provide the right type of experience for that traveler, and that traveler is a good fit for our group and our community.
Michael, I don't know if you had mentioned this, but just because flights were asked, can you give a better sense of, are most meals included, you know, all of the excursions, just getting a sense of what comes with that price?
Yep. So flying to Malaga, transfers to the hotel, all of your accommodations, all of your experiences, again, all breakfast, most lunches, most meals, the boat to Morocco. I mean, just, like I said, essentially everything from the time you land in Malaga to the time you leave Cairo, except for the flight, which we will eventually add to that, but we just don't know the final price of that yet because it's been so all over the place.
Right.
And then a handful, maybe 3 or 4 meals throughout the trip are not included because we've given free time for everybody else. But that
Perfect.
Just about, I'd say 98% of everything is kind of covered.
Great. Okay, so I know that we're on a little bit of a ticking clock here, which is a good thing for people like us that could ramble. So in these last couple of minutes, are there any burning questions that anyone has you want to write in the chat or just speak up with now?
Sarah, I'll add one thing that we didn't mention, which was
Great.
that if, as an inspiration for folks to sign up on the Sooner side, anyone that does submit their $500 Hold My Space deposit by June 15th and does end up going on the trip, we will actually cover that flight from Casablanca to Cairo. So there will be no additional charge, as they sort of an early bird special. I hate that term, but you get the idea. Early registration specials will cover that cost if you sign up and attend the trip but do that by June 15th.
Awesome. Thank you. Michael, anything else that's on your mind that you want to add that would be helpful?
No, I'll just say no, because there's a lot and we have 3 minutes and 19 seconds before Zoom kicks us out. So I'm just going to shut up and just say, I would just invite anyone who is interested to reach out. Hello at travel at, or if you want to connect with me directly, Michael at explorer-x.com, and would be more than happy to hop on a call.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us, those that are live and then those that are watching this. We will put this up and spread the news for others to learn more as well. And we are an open book if anything else comes to mind. Oh, wonderful. And thank you for those that were writing some questions and engaging in the chat. Really excited to have you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.